Anyway, so this is the one. Good, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so now we've talked about all that. So we are going to talk a little bit more about the mind and how it affects the poor health. The stress, the job stress is everywhere, and they bring, if you're stressed out in the job, when you come home, you're angry, and it's just everywhere. And so the stress, anytime you talk about job stress, it's the physical and emotional response that result when job requirements do not match the capabilities or the resources or needs. Only then they get freaked out, this is what happens. And workplace, this thing is, they have all of these problems, workplace problem, it's not only just the physical discomfort, people have physical discomfort, but it is your mindset that is the most important. There are jobs that have physical discomfort also, but I remember there was one person that was a meat packer, so his boss was saying, I don't know why he's complaining, that the average temperature where he works is so nice, it's just 65 degrees. And the guy in the morning, he was in the refrigerator, so it was like 0 degrees, below zero. And then in the evening, he was in that bhatti, where he's cooking, so that was 120 degrees, so. But the average temperature was good, So the boss was saying the average temperature every day is so good, So but there are physical conditions also that cause problems, but more than that, it's the interpersonal relationships. And all of this disorganization. People are so disorganized. If you can organize everything, then it will be okay. And then, of course, they are multitasking. The brain can only think about one thing at a time, right? So doing multitasking is another problem that they have. Anyway, so the other big word now they're bringing this is this default mode network. Besides this FOMO, we talked about FOMO, the fear of losing out. This is the default mode network. So if you are not mindful, and if you're inattentive, then your brain automatically switches autopilot. It goes into this DMN mode. This is the default mode. And when you go into the default mode, then everything is task negative. The negativity is high, and that is the resting brain. So then that's what happens. So do not get into that default mode, because the one way to avoid that default mode is to pay attention and be mindful. That's mindful meditation. So when we come to mindful meditation, we'll touch upon this again. So if you see this picture on the night, this is a 3D. We talked about how we measure, in the days of Buddha and all that, they didn't have all the ways to prove everything. They just said, you do it, and it felt good, and they continued to do it. But now we can prove it. This is the 3D image of a brain. So these people are on MBSR, that is, mindfulness-based stress reduction. So they are on mindfulness-based stress reduction. And with that, see the blue and the red is the cortex here, and then the yellow is the hippocampus, which is the memory part, right? Memory part, and the green is the amygdala. So we'll talk about all these parts of the brain just in the next few slides. But this is, I want you to leave behind this, and how much more of the blue and green is in the prefrontal cortex. This is the MBSR, that is the mindfulness-based stress reduction. So if you look at this, there are a lot of signs of stress, right? The stress response. And Mark Twain used to say that I've been through some terrible things in my life, some of which actually happened. Only some of which actually happened. So people are, they think so much about the future. The future is fear, and there is apprehension, So you need to avoid that. And then, of course, you can have stress. Stress affects your body, right? You can get you're sweating, and you can get all kinds of problems with the sweat. And then mind. Stress affects the mind. And we'll talk a little bit more as I come along with some other pretty pictures. And then affects your emotions and behavior. Stress affects everything in life. And then, so if you treat the stress properly, then you feel good. Everything is good. See, these are people, you got the pictures on the top. The guy is agitated, and he's, one person is unkempt, he's got all this beard, not doing it well. All these personality changes. Okay, so here is the thing. This is what I want to show you. So besides the brain from the cortex and all that, there is one nerve called the vagus nerve, which is the 10th cranial nerve. And I was just talking to Natwar the other day about this 10th cranial nerve. How it's called the vagabond, right? It comes up from the brain, goes all the way down, and it is the thing to rest and digest. Rest and digest. So what happens is that it goes into many branches from it. Comes all the way from brain, it goes into your to the bronchus, it goes into pharynx, all of these parts. It can slow your heart rate down, and then it affects your peristalsis, all of that, and sort of. So all of these things are affected by the brain, everything is affected. But I'll come back a little bit more on that. You see this person, this is the Tibetan monk, they talked about him, that they talk about these monks being, getting the brain, increasing the cortex in the brain, the cortical activity, and the hippocampus, which is the memory. So they put them on all these wires, they mark everything there, they put these things here, they put an oculometer on the eye, and then they put something on their head to measure the speck, there's this thing also. They put the pulse oximeter to check him, then they measure the blood pressure, and then all of these things they do, and then on the butt they put a thermometer inside because they want to see whether the rectal thermometer is to see the temperature. So all of these things, and then they tell the guy, okay, now you relax, But even then, with all these things, they have found that, the person is totally relaxed. In fact, Swami Rama had come here in 1950s, and he talked about how meditation can help with all this. And they hooked him up to all these things, and he could, within 10 minutes, he could bring down his heart rate. By 15 points, he could bring down his heart rate, just by meditation, nothing else. They wired him up, they do all these things, So this is something that Maharishi Yogi also, when he came here in Tennessee, they did some, at the University of Tennessee, where they had the ashram, they did some big studies, and they found that, this by meditation, all of these things can be affected, just by meditation and getting that space. So it is very real, and that's why I put these. And then they also check the brain activity with electroencephalogram, so they do all of that, oculometer and all that. So this just shows some pretty pictures about how they do this. Okay, so we'll come back to these things a little bit later about how we use modern science and technology to, in fact, prove what the people in the East did, right? So these are hormones also. So people, these are called feel-good hormones, basically, endorphins. These are called neurotransmitters. So if you do exercise, you don't have to do yoga also. Even just regular exercise, makes you feel good. So that is endorphins. So the endorphins are good, and these have opiate-like quality. That means they decrease your pain. In fact, if you have pain in one part, they do decrease it. So that instead of taking all these pills, or hitting the bottle, you might as well do this, do some exercise. Then of course there is dopamine, which is the goal-reaching and reward system, the dopamine. So there's dopamine. So the dopamine not only is from neurotransmitters in the brain, but dopamine and serotonin is also from your gut. So that's another thought we want to, I might as well say it now. So what happens is, your mind is not only in the brain, it is actually in every cell in your body, including the gut, which is, there's a big preponderance of this thing. And so when somebody tells you that he had a gut reaction, it's a little bit more than literally, literally he has a gut reaction. What happens is, in the old days, like if you come out of the cave and you saw a tiger, it didn't have to go to the brain, you had a gut reaction to, move, and do something, or take cover, or to fight or fright or something, So this is gut reaction. So this is all serotonin also. And then of course oxytocin is the bonding hormone. That's of course it increases tremendously high a baby and a mother, the love between the baby and a mother, so that starts even at that time. So they have checked all of these things. So these are the neurotransmitters. And serotonin is very important because if the serotonin level goes down, then person is depressed and there's anxiety. So what happens is that if the serotonin level goes down, then people take Zoloft or Prozac or Lexapro and all that. Each of these drugs are $2 billion. I mean, yearly, this thing is 2 with a capital B, $2 billion drugs, these are. So this is all, in PTSD they take serotonin, they take all this Prozac and Zoloft. And so when we treat them, much of the money that they spend on these drugs, they've gradually decreased it, with that. So with that program that they do. So this is deliberately, this is a little hazy, because in the normal person, There is anxiety, no, it's not, there's a slide like that. So because in the normal person, there is anxiety and depression, and there is weakened mental health in the normal person. You see that? And then after 15 minutes of meditation, this is with brainwave synchronization, after 15 minutes, you see there's an improvement. And after 25 minutes, you see that there is tremendous improvement. You see the red part is the maximum synchronization of the brain. So there is a level of synchronization. It is maximum after 25 minutes. And that is the red part. So you see, and then you see also the red part, it's symmetrical. It's almost symmetrical, that is the right brain and left brain. We'll talk a little bit about that left brain and right brain also, and how you do that. So both hemispheres, there is a balance in both hemispheres with this, the balance is most important. So in yoga, everything is balanced, you need to balance the right and left side of the brain. So there is, and then there is a lot of neurocommunication between the two sides of the brain. So we'll talk about that also, and how you integrate these systems, okay? So this is the best way to optimize the brain function and your mental health, emotional health, and all that stuff. So the red part is the most important thing. Red is the maximum thing. And see, in the first one, the normal person has so much of blue, and with only 25 minutes of good deep meditation, this is what can happen. And if you consider it, if you did it for 6 months every day, then how much more you can. Then you can start having changes in the brain, which is like, the cortex will be big and the hippocampus will be big and all that. Yeah, sure.
How long after 25 minutes it lasts? Maybe 25
Numbers,
minutes?
yeah, right.
Then are you balanced throughout
Yeah,
the day?
back again. But then, you reinforce it again, next day, again and again, right? The question is, how long will it last after? Yeah. These studies were done, this particular one is done only for the synchronization to see the 25 minutes, it will last for a short while, yeah. But then again, you need a booster dose the next day, So most of the people do it BID, that means twice a day, so try to do. But it doesn't take that long, 20-25 minutes is enough. You don't have to sit for several hours to do it, necessarily. Okay, and so the right and left, and let me come back to that in a little way. So everybody knows that the left brain is logic, right? Logic, language, numbers, arithmetic, and all that, So we are talking about all of that with analytical thinking, right? And the right brain is for creativity, that is the brain for expression, emotional intelligence, and imagination, so your right brain. So when we do certain in yoga also, some of the things that we do, we try to work more on the left side of the body, so the right brain is then you get very emotional intelligence, and you'll get more imagination about that. But that's why when they do music or art or something, they want to stimulate that right side of the brain, to do that. But whereas if you're doing math and numbers and analytical thinking, you want to stimulate on the opposite side. So this is the triune brain. I want to show you something. If you think about it, I want you to put your thumb here and close this like this and think about this, okay? Think of this number, okay? So for your brain. Okay, so this is the hind brain. This is the hind brain. This is the hind brain. Okay, so this is the earliest brain. This is the lizard and the reptile that had this brain 300 million years ago. 300 million years ago, if you look at evolutionary times, this is your hind brain. This is all that they had. The reptilian brain, you see. So this is the 4 F's. That is the food, fight, fright, and then fear. This is all they had. So if there was a prey, they would. This is survival brain. This is all they did, survive. That's the only thing that happened. So they had to survive, and that's all they did, So they needed food, they needed fight, flight, and then fear, because if they had to and reproduction. That's all. These are the reproduction. That's it they had. So this is what it was. And then you have the limbic brain. This is the limbic brain. This part is the midbrain. This is called the limbic brain. Now the limbic brain is more for emotion and your feelings, and this is the emotional part of the brain, more feelings. And this is the next part of the brain. Okay, this is the next one. And then when you come down like this part is the cortex. This is the neobrain. So this brain is about 100 million years. This part is 300 million years, 100 million years. And this one, the top part, revolutionary wise, this is the neocortex. This is the new brain. This is about 300,000 years old, but there are various numbers that people throw around, but this is basically what the consensus is. This is the new one. Now, the most important part is the prefrontal lobe, this part. This is the prefrontal lobe right here. So this is the prefrontal lobe right here, frontal lobe. And this is the executive brain. And this has much more meaning now in today's world with all the relationships and healthy relationships and all that stuff. So this is the most important part of the brain. So this is what it is. So this is the newest part of the brain. This is the rational part of the brain, the executive part, and higher level of thinking and all that only man has. So this is why we need to do this language, imagination, and all the creativity of the brain. Okay? So the thing is that this is the head, the heart, and the gut. And this is like an orchestra. So the thing that they talk more about the triune brain, the three parts of the brain, was that there are 100 billion neurons, something like that, some fantastic number. But more than that, there are so many connections, synapses. So one neuron is connected to another one. And then on top of it, even Buddha's time, they knew that if the neurons wire together, they fire together. So wire together, fire together. So children in the school, like if you remember, if you want to think of something, let us say you want to think of something that you were studying in your history book, go all around those parts. Like if you want to think about Akbar, say, then you think about Birbal, you think about Humayun, you think about Babur, you think about Mughal Empire. All of those things will come together and finally it will click, because all of those things are wired. So if they are wired together, they fire together. That's what it is. So this is, and so all of these neurons are cooperating in like a harmonic symphony. And that is the beauty of the brain. So the more they're learning about the neuroscience about this, it's just so interesting and so fascinating how much the brain can do and what it cannot do. Okay. So now we kind of ease from the mindfulness. Now we're going to ease into the little bit of the meditation part, right? So on the meditation part, the picture on my left, this thing is the turbulence. This is what your mind is now. So we need to calm down the distractions, calm down everything else, and then that's the only way to promote tranquility. So you need to allay apprehension, because we saw that in the previous one, and the allay apprehension, restore tranquility. So you promote tranquility by reducing stress and tension. Just you see how much difference in a cool, nice lake and pretty, So the physiological effects of this are, that the meditation, and just very, very briefly, just to let you know that they have done a lot of studies on this, the sympathetic activity of the brain, where you want to decrease this thing. And it automatically happens if you do the meditation. It decreases the sympathetic activity and it increases the rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic activity. And vagus nerve that we talked about, that is the parasympathetic nerve, that comes all the way down. Then, of course, we talked about the neurotransmitters, the endorphins, endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, all those stuff. We talked about that. And this is kind of a recap of what we did before. And then it increases the immune function. And we'll talk a little bit more about the immune response a little later on. And that is what improves your attention-related abilities. The attention-related abilities are you're alert, you're focused, prioritize, you can enhance the quality of life. So most of them have this is not just conjecture. There are very good papers written on all of this. This is from the American Heart Association thing. But they are all, so some of the places I didn't write all the studies because, that's not the purpose of this, but there are this in here. So,
Dr. Shroff, question on the previous slide. Can you explain exactly the difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic?
Sure, yeah. So sympathetic, so there are two kinds of nervous system. One is the central nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system has sympathetic and parasympathetic, right? So the sympathetic nervous system is like, this is from the adrenal glands. They have the hormones called adrenaline, and cortisol. So what happens is that if you, like in the caveman, if you give you that classic example, if you walk out and you see a tiger, the sympathetic is increased, so that is your stress, so your stress is important. So when the stress goes up, then the cortisol level goes up, right? And then that way you can either fight it, or fight or flight, or freeze. Nowadays, you know, there's fight, flight, or freeze. So if you're with your boss or your wife or spouse, you know, so you can instead of fighting it or fighting it, you know, you freeze. That's it. You don't have to do anything else. You know, so you freeze. So these are fight, flight, or freeze. You know, that's how it's called. But now the parasympathetic system is the rest and digest. Okay, so that's good. Now, this fight and flight in an acute reaction, it is good. It is very important, you know, to have a flight and flight, the sympathetic system, very important. But problem is that in chronic stress, it's not important. Okay, he told me something that day, you know, so I'm kind of ruminating over it and I'm working in it and I'm thinking, why did he say that or not say that? Or like the simple example that they give you is that you're walking on the streets and your friend who sees there, he doesn't wave out to you, right? He doesn't say hello to you and he doesn't wave out to you. Now, you know, one way to look at it, if you're mindful, is said, well, maybe he didn't wear his glasses, you know, that's why he couldn't see me, you know, that's fine. Or he was thinking about something else and he didn't see me. No, you know, I know he was thinking about that day, you know, when he did this thing and he told me this and I told him this one and that's why he's doing this. And I know that he doesn't like me at all and all that thing. That is all chronic stress.
Yeah.
So that is all sympathetic and chronic stress. Whereas the important thing is to flip it over with yoga, meditation, and all those things, the breathing things, deep breathing. The parasympathetic system is the biggest one. That is the one that comes to all of these things. It can decrease your heart rate, it can decrease your deep breathing, it can do your gut, all of that stuff. So, yeah. So this is the thing, this is the chakra meditation, this is the chakra thing. There are thousands of nadis in the body, you know. Now this is a little bit subtle. See, now people could dissect the nerves, they could see the brain, they could dissect it, they could find out about the heart and everything else. People can and do tests and all that. Now this is a little subtle because there is no definite, nadis are there. This is energy medicine and Reiki and a lot of other things are going into this. But nowadays they find the effects of this, you know, and they are trying to see how the things from Eastern and Western, how they can balance now. So what happens is if you see from the bottom of this thing, the Muladhara chakra is the way down, you know, this is the root chakra. This is the survival, you know, this is the stability, survival and all that stuff. And then of course the testicles are there, you know, in that area. See? And then you come to this Svadhisthana chakra where the adrenal gland is there, the sex hormones are there and all that, you know, so what's that. And then they've correlated all the hormones and the glands and even the neural plexuses with this. That is the beauty of this, you know. So they talked about it, all this. And until now, people, until quite recently at least, they did not know how to correlate all these things. And now if you should, in present day world, you know, you're correlating all these things. You know. That is the important thing. And you're really substantiating what people have told you before. So it's not like something is up in the air and they talk about it, you know. And then, you know, if you talk about this thing, the pancreas, where the pancreas is, that's the solar plexus, you know. And that's why all these things. Then if you talk about the heart, the love and the compassion, is the heart, you know, that is thymus gland, that is all important. That also helps in the immune function. Then on the thyroid here, the neck, you know, there is the chakra there. So that is the neck, throat chakra, and that also is the same, thyroid, you know. Anahata chakra. Then if you go to the pituitary, you know, this is the Ajna chakra, you know, this one here. So if you draw a line, go down into this thing, that's pituitary, that's your master gland of the whole body. So when we talk about the central nervous system and the sympathetic, some of these things, from the pituitary, it goes to the adrenal gland. There is a nerve, you know, and there are nerves and all kinds of names. Each one has a name and each one has a distinct. And then the highest thing is the pineal gland, which regulates your sleep. Sleep and, you know, all those things. So each, I only put these things on the side. I cannot deliberately shrunk in this picture so that I can just show you that these chakras, you need to. There are ways that they have shown to balance the chakra, to cleanse the chakra, you know, and how to go to an ascent, you know, from Muladhara chakra, you go up and go up and go up, and they go all the way up, you know. So these are the body chakra, then these are the mind chakras, and the emotional chakra, and then, you know, this is it. And each one has a color. Each one has a color. So it's that big cure, you know. It starts like the colors of the rainbow. You know, it is violet, and then indigo, and then blue, and then green, and yellow, and this. And each one has a sound. You know, final. Here it is Om, and then here it is silence. Nothing after that, you know. So yeah, this silence. So anyway, so this is the chakra meditation and all that. There is a whole series of meditations on that, but basically this is. So when I learned meditation, when I first started, I did this transcendental meditation. We did, and Sri Ravi Shankar was very famous on that. They had the thing called Sahaj Samadhi, Sahaj meditation. But then, this is also very important because, it gives you that basis of this, Of course, when Maharishi Yogi did this, he had the Beatles doing it, all of the Beatles were doing it, Maya Farrow was doing it, Deepak Chopra was doing it, in fact, Sri Ravi Shankar first started with Maharishi Yogi, and he was doing that. He was called Panditji at that time, but, he used to do that. So, this basic thing is to let go, the whole thing is to let go. Don't worry about this thing, let go, drop old limiting habits, They were talking about this thing that if you're in an intersection, of course, the old days they used to talk about the clouds, right? The clouds, and you just watch the clouds, and they all disappear, and you're not, the clouds are not there, you're witness to the clouds. But nowadays they talk about this thing is that you're in a traffic jam, you're waiting at the intersection of the road, and then there are cars passing. So, the cars are passing, you're not jumping. If there are taxis, if there are some taxis in the car, you're not, if you are in the place where you want to be, you're not putting out your hand and going into the taxi. Don't think about it. Don't need to stop like that. If your thoughts are there, you don't have to worry about jumping into the thoughts. That's what it says. So this is transcendental. So I think it's one of the most effortless types of meditation you can do. But then, after a while, I'm not done mindful meditation now. But but that's not that time. Okay. So this is what the zero thinking goes. Then, but the other thing is about zero thinking. There are some myths in meditation. So, one thing is that it is not that you don't have any thoughts. For the simplest thing is that if I tell you the classical example in the Himalayas they used to say is that for just close your eyes and think of a polar bear. And then they give you 15 seconds and you only think about the polar bear, right? Then they tell you, okay, now I will teach you about this meditation. Now, you think about it, don't worry about having zero thoughts, don't worry about focusing anything. Just, wait for 2 minutes, but don't think of a polar bear, and everybody will think about it. That's the classical example that they give you. They also talk about monkey, so they say that man chanchal hai, and then man is all that, So there are a whole bunch of studies like this, on stress and anxiety. But see, if you do transcendental TM meditation, there is a lot of, it's almost double the concentration with other things. Yeah.
What does the word transcendental mean? What does it mean?
So you're transcending your mind. That's what it is, basically. That's what I think it is. Because I did it for a long time, and then during the Sahaj thing, but after that, that's what I think you're transcending. The whole purpose of all this thing is to transcend it. That's what I believe.
Be.
Yeah. It's
Transcendental into be.
In be. Being.
Yeah. Be.
Yeah.
To be.
So, yeah, Sridharji, my first transcendental meditation, we all did Boon together, The big senior yoga. Good. So then, of course, it levels cortisol levels. You talked about this cortisol, what is the sympathetic system. This is cortisol levels, by this transcendental meditation, they showed that, before and after meditation, it drops the cortisol level. And then, of course, there is meditation, relieves blood pressure, And Swami Rama also did this, he reduced his blood pressure by so many points, not only the pulse rate, heart rate, but he did the blood pressure also. So there are a whole bunch of studies. But nowadays they found that the way they do this is by nitric oxide, which opens up the blood vessels. Nitric oxide. So until quite recently, people were talking about, okay, how do they do it? What is it? But now we know that it's nitric oxide that does it.
Wow.
So this is so important that they were doing this results. See, meditation results in the formation of nitric oxide, and that's the one that opens up your blood vessels. Yeah. So this is a beauty of being in the present world. I don't know. People talk about good old times, but now if you use some of those good old times now, and you can correlate, and do this. So now we'll go to a little bit about yoga, the Patanjali yoga. So this is just a slide to show that, we're not just talking about stretching, static stretching, dynamic stretching and all that stuff alone, and not going into pretzel-like poses, So what we're doing is, we're talking about yam, niyam, asanas, pranayama, and then pratyahara. That means, you're bringing down your senses completely. And then we'll talk about our dharana and the meditation part, and how we do this. Because these are the 8 limbs. This is the most important concept that people need to realize in the West now. That this is much more than this. So here also, these are different poses. I just put this slide only to show you one thing. So once you come in a pose, we try to tell everybody that you need to be there for 20 seconds, at least. So that is called that Stiram Sukham Asana. That is, once you get to that pose. So the biggest difference between the yoga and the exercise that you go to the gym, is that in yoga you synchronize everything with your breath, with your breathing, and then once you come into that position, you stay in that position. That is just Stiram Sukham Asana, and be steady in that position. Because if your body is steady, then your mind is steady also. That's the correlation that they do. So there are a whole bunch of these tests that they do, And then, of course, there are health benefits. So the easiest way to do about health benefits is what it does for the mind, what it does for the body, and then what it does for the soul. And then, of course, there are all the other things you can talk about, immune function, and then how it can help diabetes, how it can help blood pressure, and how it can help all the other stuff, the immune function, asthma, gut problems, everything, how it can help. So basically, from the body point of view, it is important about flexibility, mobility, endurance, strength. All of these things are important because, one way or another, it will help the physical fitness of one person. And of course, it improves your ability to walk, dance, and move. That's all, everything. And it relieves sleep. We'll talk about the sleep in the last part. So this is, of course, a slide. See, basically, we talked a lot about this alignment and this thing. So you don't want to have a rounded neck and all that. You need good posture, position, and all that stuff. So yeah, good. So we can have some questions in the end. Then, of course, in yoga, they always talk about mind, memory, mood, muscles, mouth, that type of thing. So the most important thing is there are 3 driving forces: the compassion, passion, and dispassion. So everybody knows compassion, kindness and all that stuff. But passion is the seed for creativity. If you have passion for yoga, it's the seed for creativity. And the one thought you want to do is, dispassion is let go. Don't put your hand out for the taxi, let go. And if you think of banana, when you're meditating, it doesn't matter, it's okay if you think of banana, but don't think about whether the banana is big, if the banana is small, whether it's yellow, whether it's green, and whether it's going to taste good or not. Don't think about all that. Ripe or unripe, you don't have to think about all that. Let it go, drop it. Okay? And this is a slide about, I'm going to skip this slide because this is just what we've talked about already. And I think in the interest of time, I'm going to show this. But let me show you this next slide. Most of it is covered with that. And this is an animated slide. So when you have awareness, so we talked about most of these things so you can kind of follow along easily. So this is awareness. So if you have an idea can sprout in your mind. Okay? And then you have a thought. Then with the mind, see the thing in purple and red, and the body. So between the mind and the body is the breath. So that's what we're going to come to now, the breath part. And then, of course, action, memory, super-ego. So this is how you can get, and this is how the connection between the mind, body, and soul is in yoga. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the connection between the mind, body, and yoga. Yeah. You want to come in? Yeah.
No, I'm fine. No.
Don't sit down.
Mind,
Yeah.
body.
So the biggest thing is between the connection of mind and body is the breathing, right? So this is Andrew Weil. He is a professor of internal medicine and of course integrative medicine, and he talks about this. So this is the mind. So the mind is like a kite, right? The mind is like a kite, and it's going in the breeze, and the string is your breath, and you're holding the body. You're holding it, right? So the only connection between you and the kite is the breath. This is the string. So if the kite is going in one direction and then going another, once you get into that central place, even that string is like a rope. That's where you want to be. So if the mind is wavering and moving all over the place, breath, you can control it. So that's the beauty of this thing. And of course, I just want to talk about deep breathing here a little bit. And I want to do this thing here. The whole thing now, everybody talks about is the belly breathing. You know, belly is the most important thing, you know. And your belly breathing, that Swadhisthana chakra, your diaphragm has to go all the way down, right up to this thing here. So that is the important thing. And then when you breathe out, your belly, think of your belly going down to your spine. Okay, so that is the more important thing. So this is deep breathing. And then of course slow breaths, you know. So man is about 75, 80 years old. This thing, you know, the lifespan. And he breathes 15 times a minute, let's say. So if you bring that 15 times a minute down to 3 or 4 times a minute, you know, you will live, increases the longevity and decreases your thoughts. Normal day, you know, you have 60,000 thoughts, you know, people have. So, you know, if you think about that, if you bring down your breathing rate, you'll bring down your thoughts also. With the breathing rate. You'll bring down the thoughts in the mind. Yeah? And then if you look at and also slow, don't get to rush. See the rabbit and the rat, you know, they're jumping all over the place, you know, they live only for 3, 4, 5 years, you know, that's it. Whereas, you know, the buck turtle, you know, or the tortoise, you know, it breathes only once a minute, you know, or, you know, some of them breathe once, even half a time, you know, so, you know, still they're doing this, you know, so that is important. So that's what we want to tell. And so just because this is about respiratory. So just because you're breathing heavy, that might mean something else also. I just don't want to think that yoga is for everything. You know? If you have asthma, you have infection, you have dehydration, fever, or lung problems, then of course you can breathe more. But that's different, you know. And then pranayama. This is our. So let's do one quick thing about pranayama. I just want you all to sit here, just keep your straight, okay? And I just want you to do a deep breath. And what I want you to do is just put your one hand on your belly, okay? And I just want you to place your hand on the belly, and you know you can close your eyes just softly, and just wait, and with a smile on your face, just place your right hand on the belly, and just want you to inhale through your nose and push your hand up out of the belly. Okay, that's your belly breathing. Okay, okay, that's just to show you. Now remember, breathing is 4, 7, and 8. That means I'm going to tell you to breathe. Repeat the belly breathing now with a slight modification. Inhale for count of 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Very nice. So that way, and you can do that at home also. When you're trying to sleep, you need to put your hand up and down, and then you can do that, you know? Okay? Yeah. Yeah, yes ma'am.
Why is the inhale count is 4 and breathing out?
So normally the exhalation in yoga, the the exhalation should be more than the inhalation. So you want to let it out. So you breathe in for energy, right? Cosmic energy, and you breathe out for relaxation. When you breathe out for relaxation, you let it go all the way out. So the more you let it go out, then automatically the breath will in.
Yeah, but you took it only
4. Yeah, that's it. 2, 3, 4. Then you hold. Yeah, that's the standard way.
Standard.
There are so many other ways. There are box breathing. There are 10 different ways to breathe. Also, this different type. But this is the one that we do mostly for breathing for 4, 7, and 8. Andrew Will also does that mostly in this thing now.
See, when you
Yeah,
exhale for so long, that means
Everything is going
empty.
on.
So
Exactly.
now you want to breathe in
Automatically.
all the bigger.
Yeah.
So in those 4 counts only
Yeah.
you can breathe a lot.
So what you do is,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it automatically come because you're empty. No? I mean,
You're
this
totally
is just
empty.
a negative pressure. You know, this is anyway. So I want to just quickly go to that. I told you about this thing, so then we can have some more questions. So this is lifestyle medicine. So we talked about physical this thing, Now we're going to talk a little bit about, this is what is lifestyle medicine, eat well, move more, play more, laugh more, love more, stress less, and avoid, most important, smoking, alcohol, drugs, all of that kind of stuff, right? So they did this with the healthy things. If you do, so it's not all or none law, whatever you do, if you do all the thing, then it decreases the heart rate, considerably. And holistic medicine meaning whole thing. I'm just going to rush through some of the slides because I just wanted to talk to you. I want to show you. And just like we talked about mindfulness, athletes and all that, there's mindful eating also. Okay, that's the standard, don't use that. Okay, but I want to show you this one. Thomas Alva Edison in 1902, he is the father of invention of the country. And he's one of the biggest businessmen in the country. And he said the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame. And even that, 1902, okay? And so, avoid processed food, that is the biggest thing, Okay. In Gujarati, we say, no talyo, no galyo. Everybody knows that. Anyway, so now this is the history of Western medicine. You must have seen different ways of this. So the best pharmacy is the pharmacy. See the pun on the word? And then in 500 BC, during Buddha's time, they used to say, eat this root. Then they say the root is heathen, say the prayer. Then it is superstition, take the potion. Potion is quackery or snake oil. Then they take the antibiotic. Now we say antibiotic is artificial and overused. So eat the root. And you see on this part, on the thing that the cycle there, I wanted to show you that. There's no thing. On the left hand side, there is a cycle. This is a vicious cycle. So this is the cycle, and now we say we have come back to the roots. So this is how it is. So this is one of the words, but then of course obesity is also saying. So no talk about health can be avoided, because of obesity that affects everything. But the important thing I want to tell you is the brain waves. So when you sleep normally, you're in beta waves, 14 to 30. So even if you close your eyes and just go into mild, earliest form of meditation, which everybody should do, you go into alpha waves, And then theta waves you go if you're doing deep at 25 minutes at least, a day, once or twice a day, It doesn't have to be that long, but we need to get into theta waves. And now if you're Dalai Lama or somebody else, then you go into delta waves, there. Now in addition to all these, these are just basically synchronized electrical pulses, we saw that. And I want to show you this. This is Sudarshan Kriya, which Sridhara, we do a lot of them during our Sudarshan Kriya. And effects of sleep. Okay, now I want to show you this. So whatever you do in this life, if your tap, the tap is open, that means the cause is not corrected. Then these are two doctors, they are sweeping the floor. And, so then the patient asks, doc, how long do I have to take the statin medicine, or how long do I have to take the blood pressure medicine? Then the doctor will say, all your life, because until you close the faucet, or you decrease the problem there, this is what happens. So we basically have a sick care system, we don't have a health care system. If you think about it, there's nothing, it's not, there's no way to stop the mobbing unless you see. Dean Ornish had come here to Dallas, the cardiologist, and he talked about all of these things. And his yoga guru was Swami, he had come here with him, and he talked about the innermost self. So basically meditation also is to keep on progressive quietening of the mind till you reach your innermost self. That is your cause. And your innermost self is pure, it is good, and there is restful, and there is no malice, there is no resentment, there is no grievance, nothing, the innermost self. So he was talking about all that. Somebody in the audience said, Swami, are you Hindu? So he says, no, I'm unto. So I'm undoing all I'm undoing. It was very funny when he said that. So that is basically what it is. It's like a mirror, you've got all this cake of dust, you need to take it out gradually. And it will happen with yoga, meditation, good life, and everything else. And this is my last slide. So I want to just, because then we can have some questions, So you're trying to connect to the beauty of nature. So there's a lot of beauty in the nature. You see, there is earth, water, fire, air, and space. It's there. But these are the same 5 elements that we have in our body also. So this is how the microcosm and the macrocosm get together. This is the microcosm and macrocosm. There is harmony in nature, no matter what. If you think about it, there is tremendous harmony in nature. You know, so what happens is that if with all this harmony, you know, you should be able to get this thing. There's harmony everywhere. There's harmony. You just have to look there. You just have to keep your eyes open and see how much beauty there is in nature. You know, so this is why. So in fact, we have a type of meditation also in that where you go into this appreciate. You know, you have an attitude with gratitude. You know, the whole thing is, you know, and take nothing for granted, you know, everything for gratitude. And that gives you the space where you are, because the human body is so precious, and we saw some of the things about it, you know. So this is what, see the cascade, this is the cascade of life. You know, think about this picture, you know, as you think of this. Many times I think of this picture and go to sleep, you know. Yeah, I'm sorry, you couldn't see, yeah, so that's basically, I mean, that's what, yeah, yes sir.
My question will be long, but your answer may be short.
Okay.
Now I am around 60.
Yes.
Progressively, I know the best days of my life, I was sleeping for 8 hours a day like a baby. Go to bed at 10 and wake up at 6:30. Then I had a phase where it was breaking up around 3:30, 4 o'clock, like after 5 hours of sleep. Then with 1 hour of struggle again, I used to sleep and then wake up at 6:30 and go to work. It was a little bit stressful. But now I'm getting into a phase where I can sleep 2 hours in the beginning. I don't know what is happening in the world, like anything. But after 2 hours, I get to wake up. And then I'm taking time, at least 2 to 3 hours, to fall back into the sleep. And I am never feeling fresh. Okay. A lot of times when I talk to doctors in my own family and my own primary care, they say, oh, you're getting old, so that's natural, just try to change your lifestyle. So the question to you, you are a very gentleman, and I can ask you this question rather than an young doctor. What is the impact of this getting aged and so accept it as something natural, go with lifestyle? How do I relate age to all of this, what is happening?
So it can be multifactorial. So, you know, like for example, when a person's about 60, you have a prostate problem, you know, you need to get up every 2-3 hours to pass urine because, you know, you're not listening. So for that, people have that problem, or even otherwise, you know, they're getting up that many times to pass urine, you know, if the bladder is full, we tell people not to drink any water, decrease your water intake after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You know,
it's not
yeah,
the
one,
urine.
I'm just,
Yeah,
you know,
it's not the urine that is
I understand.
making me,
Yeah, I'll just walk through. Yeah, I'll come to your thing also. So basically, that's one thing, because a lot of times people have that. As a urologist, you know, I do the plumbing, right? We take care of the kidney, bladder, all the good things. You know. So that way, all the time, the people had that problem, and they just don't have. So of course, you know, the last thing we do is the surgery, but before that, we tell them to decrease the water intake and drink more water in the morning. You know, that's also, in fact, that's a good idea too, to drink 3 glasses of water in the morning, so that's for the day. And don't drink any tea or coffee after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, that's another thing, so tea and coffee. And people also used to think of alcohol, you know, that alcohol puts a person to sleep. Yeah, alcohol puts a person to sleep, but then he wakes up. You know, it's not a deep sleep. So there are different phases, you know, of sleep. It's called, there is, not to get into too technical, but there is a rapid eye movement, REM, you know, REM sleep and non-REM sleep. Now, if you, the whole purpose is to try to get into deep sleep.
Correct.
Usually it takes about 3 hours for a person before he gets into deep sleep. You know, but gradually, unless, you know, you're doing meditation or something like that and you get into a deep sleep, that is a different way. But, so that is one thing that you need to do.
Is deep sleep
Yeah.
REM or non-REM?
So deep sleep is on REM, the rapid eye movement is there, but more than that, you know, it is the waves that what they're doing nowadays, you know, more than REM. This is just different phases. But your most important thing is the waves, you know. So when you start with that beta waves, then, you know, when you put the first stage of meditation, when you're quieting down your mind, is the alpha stage. So from 4 to 30, you know, beta, it comes down to 4 to 8. And then theta waves is, you know, from 4 to 8. And people who can do meditation for a long time, and people who are good at meditation, can get to that theta stage, you know. But I'm very few people can get into that delta stage. Now, that was only a simplification. There is a thing called super consciousness also, which is above 30, above beta. And there people are, like they say Satya Sai Baba had this, you know, super consciousness. You know, he could see something that was out there, something like that. So, yes, sir.
I didn't mean to repeat my question,
Yeah.
but my basic question.
Yeah, I know, I
No,
understand.
no, how much of it we have to accept it as, hey, you are getting
No,
age,
no.
take
Yeah.
it and just live
Age
with
is
it.
just a number. No, it doesn't have. That's not true. People who are old also, they think they can sleep well. There's absolutely no reason not to do that. I mean, there are people also who sleep like a baby. That's it. They can sleep. They can sleep. Not that many hours, but they can sleep well. But of course, once a person gets older, there are other things also. He's got a lot of other things that.
Yeah, mentally.
Yeah, mentally thing, and he's thinking about this thing. That's why we talked about be in the present moment. That increases the thing. So, I mean, it's a whole topic by itself. But I can talk to you about
No,
it.
it's not like, okay,
No.
you're getting old,
No,
accept it, live with it.
No, not at all. No. Because there are people old age people who can sleep well. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so my experience was if I do the meditation before my bedtime, then I'm not able to sleep for next 1 or 2 hours actually. Is this something, it's because of meditation? Usually my experience was if I do the meditation, so I tend to do the maybe more study or more reading actually. Means I'm not able to sleep for next 2 hours. That's how, so usually I avoid meditation before going to bed.
So there are several different things, There are people who do meditation in the morning and they say, oh, I don't get time in the morning, so I cannot do meditation. So we always tell people that any time is better than no time, That's one thing. Okay, so people can do meditation anytime. A lot of people, they sleep a little bit in the afternoon also, they take a cat nap or sometime, they do a meditation and then try to sleep, So there are different ways to do it. The classical way is to sit in that yoga position, that lotus position, and keep your neck, the back straight and do that. But that's not necessary. People have found that even you can lie down and do the meditation, But, so there is a thing called yoga nidra also, So that is one other stage also, So in the beginning when I used to do, if I couldn't sit up for a long time and do the meditation, I used to lie down and they used to say that, you'll go to sleep. But that's fine, even if you can go to sleep, you're tired, you go to sleep, but to get to that stage is good also, So there are so many different ways. To answer your other question, other part of the question, I don't think that, there are a lot of people who do meditation in the night and go to sleep. That does not necessarily mean, but there are ways to do that. And of course, there is a whole thing called yoga nidra where they emphasize on that part also, Okay. So, yes.
Can I add something?
Yes, sir, please.
So, the best way to do the meditation is like after you go back home, like after the office, do the meditation that time. That's what I do. Because when I come back from the office, my blood pressure goes up because driving and from the boss, all these things happening. And when you sit for the 20 minutes, 25 minutes, it really calms down. You can really see that effect. And the blood pressure goes down, everything goes down so nicely. No, so it's best to do. If you can't do it in the morning, as I said, so sometimes I do in the lunch break. That time, like we have a wellness center in our office, so I go there and do that one. Even if I miss that one, I try to catch up in the evening after I go back home. So don't do it in the night if it's not working for you.
Yeah, I learned a lot from Sridhar and his wife Rekha, they do this meditation. They teach also this thing, and we do all this time in also we do this. But it's okay different time. See, for example, we talked about mindful things, somebody cuts in front of you, then you feel bad, right? So mindfulness, that's another thing. And you feel bad. But then if you're in this mindful thing, you'll say, well, maybe he was in a hurry, he had to go home. I hope he reaches home safely. That's all you feel like that. That's it. Or if you're late to work and there is the road is blocked for whatever reason, there are some accident going on. So the first thing is you'll say, oh my gosh, I'm late to work. I've got 100 things to do. This one, that one, and you're boiling. And so that if you're a mindful thing, and if you're thinking about everything, I hope the person who's in an accident is okay. Does he need any help? That's what you come to. So it's a long story about mindfulness.
Allow me to say this. I'm experiencing, that's why I want to share with the team.
Yeah.
It's not only just, someone is spreading across you or what, even at home, oh, my wife said this. I remember that 10 times, which I used to ignore, when I was young.
Yeah.
Like tomorrow I need to pay the bill.
Yeah.
Okay, it reminds me 10 times before I pay the bill, because that may be last day. Pay your credit card bill. Oh, no, I have to go talk to that person. that reminds me like a ringing in the mind 10 times. And I was asking one of the doctors, like in a seminar, they gave us a best principle, which I want to share with you. She said, remember Ohio, only hit it once. I really like that.
Yeah. So what happens is in your so the brain does like this for negativity, right? So if my wife said something good, I might remember it one time, but if she told me something bad, then it will listen more. Because that is how the brain is structured. So that is how that that default mode we are talking about. That's the reason we yeah. Yes.
Yes, sir. Now, what happens during initial phase of meditation, when you have shut off the mind from outside, it automatically, it's a gravity, it goes inside. And when it goes inside, it releases all your vrittis, inside vrittis. And then you remember that this happened there, this happened there. At that time, you have to just observe it and not to flow with that.
Right.
Although this is a cleansing process is going on. That's important.
Yeah, that's so true. So that's like they have mind sight, that is insight, insight in your thinking. There's a mindset. There's a guy called David Siegel, he talks a lot about, he's written several books on this, So there's a thing called mind sight, and he talks about the insight into your this thing on that. So that's also important.
Question, on one of the slides you were talking about synchronization. Can you elaborate a little bit on the synchronization? Synchronizing what with
Yeah,
what?
so there are two kinds of things. One synchronization is synchronization between the left and the right side of the brain. So what happens is that, you're basically what happens is one side of the brain might more, you might be more into logic and math and just all that stuff. But you need the other side also to rest and digest and balance it too. The other thing is that this is a triune brain. See, what happens is, that means the reptilian brain is 300 million years, and we have parts of that. Then the limbic brain is 100 million years old. Now the neocortex is there. So, but all these three are coming together like an orchestra. That's like an orchestra. So that is your synchronization. So you need to synchronize all of these things. So that, some people who have the reptilian brain mode, they are more worried about this fight, flight, fright, and reproduction. That's it. They're only thinking about the 4 or 5 things, that's it. They're not thinking about. So then you need to go to the emotional part. That's called emotional intelligence. That's
So how do you create the balance? Are you saying that meditation will create the
meditation does
balance?
that. Meditation, breathing, and just getting healthy relationships. All of these things will come together at one stage, and that will be your synchronization. I mean, this is a multifactorial thing, and of course, there are so many different things.
The alternate
Yeah,
posture breathing can balance your both
See,
legs.
the Anulom Vilom also, people were treating it in one way that you breathe this, breathe this left and right, but mainly it helps the calmness of the mind. There are particular ways to do this Anulom Vilom where you only close this side and this other side goes up, and when you want to close this side, the other side goes up. There are particular ways to improve your left side of the brain to the right side of the body. Yeah, there are particular ways to do that. For a whole topic like that. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, during meditation, so you're concentrating on the breath. That's the only thing you can do so you can control your thoughts.
No, that's one way. Controlling breath is just one way. That's one of the easiest ways that people think. People who are doing the breathing thing, they feel that it's one of the easy, because if your mind wanders, then your breath is unsteady, And if your breath is steady, your mind is steady, That is what the yoga pradipaka, they talk about that. But so and you are what your thoughts are, right? So you need to get your thoughts down. And one way to do this is breath, because you have something to do. You're following your breath, in and out. So there are several ways. Even the breathing part, how to follow the breath is. There are a lot of articles written on that. Some people just feel the breath going in through the nostrils and going down, and then the warm air coming up, So that is one way to do it in warm. Some people do the belly breathing, So that's also up and down, how to do it. And so then you do that for a while, and then if you're calm and you don't have any problems, then it's okay. But then if you have thoughts in your mind, or a sensation in your body, or some noise in the environment, then that has disturbed your, agitated your thing, then you go back to your, if you're doing breathing way to do it, you do that. But if you're doing TM, then you go back to your mantra, or if you're looking at a candle, you do that. The Buddhist people do walking meditation, you know, they go up and down the street walking, just they one path, they keep on going up and down. So that is all different ways to do it, but basically, as long as you achieve the goal, whichever works in your case.
Dr. Shroff, do you have any opinion on that Wim Hof method of preaching? You know?
Yes, Wim Hof, I know the breathing. So he is the person who's a Norwegian person that goes in the ice water, you know. So when he was 17 years old, you know, somebody challenged him that, you know, can you jump into this one? And he could jump into it and nothing, you know, he just came out. You know, then he went longer and longer into this thing. And now he talks about going into icy cold water and just stay there, you know. And then he has talked about the breathing part where he, I think it's a little bit more, you know, what he's trying to do is to show his God that he can do it, you know. Personally, I would rather just quiet my mind one way rather than do all these gimmicks. But, you know, he does that and I see that, you know, he can control his breath for the longest time, you know, and then, and go. He wants to walk, he wants to climb the Himalayan mountain, you know, and Mount Everest to just regular clothes, you know, yeah. You know, now some of the yoga people do that too. You know, I know that there was one yoga, in some of the yogis, you know, this thing, Baba Ramdev, he was listening, he was just like bare body and just one little dhoti, you know, some little longi hair, and that's it. And he went there because he could generate heat in his body. And that is an Anulom Vilom thing, you know, they sing on the, because your right side is Surya and left side is, he can generate heat and he can tell his body also that, you know, no, I'm not feeling cold. But that is, you know, that but it is interesting that he can do all that, you know, and he can swim in icy cold water. You know?
Practice, huh?
Yeah, that's practice. Yeah. One thing like that.
Well, actually, I wanted to make a comment
Yeah,
about the integration
Yeah,
of
please.
psychology,
Yeah.
Philosophy, and physical medicine, which is basically the backbone of yoga. And I try to look at it from a scientific point of view as to which all systems are you modulating. You are actually modulating the stress response of the body by your diversion of your attention. The breathing is part that you are attending to by diverting your thoughts and your mind from other parts of the body functions. And you are actually providing a training effect to the body, how to dispel the disturbing thoughts or disturbing ideas by focusing on a basic function of the body which goes on day in and day out, 24 hours a day. That's why the breathing is so much concentrated on all those yogic exercises. The one part which really is bothersome is the static nature of the exercise as against a dynamic or active exercise, which is actually emphasized much more in the exercise physiology, where there is a better release of those endorphins, better release of serotonin, dopamine, and those are actually more longer lasting. So one question was that how long does the effect last of the transcendental meditation, or for that matter, any kind of yogic exercises? The longer lasting effect is by the aerobic exercises. And in fact, it has been shown that there is a conditioning of the body, conditioning of the brain, conditioning of the body, the whole nature of it. And actually it is the conditioning which provides the relaxation of the body, physically and mentally. The relaxation of the body and brain does provide you the opportunity to have a good quality sleep. And the sleep is very integral to recovery of the body functions. And I think that all the basis for yogic exercises and yoga and everything is basically focused on to one thing: how to relax and how to provide rest to the body for it to rejuvenate. And I think that a lot of the fringe benefits are in the form of immune functional improvement, body function improvements, endocrine function improvements. I think they are all byproducts or fringe benefits of the same basic principle. Because basically, all those chakras are basically all endocrine glands. And those endocrine glands, how you actually modulate, how you train them, how do you make certain that the adrenaline and noradrenaline response is attenuated by a particular situation. How you manage the stress. What is stress? I mean, phenomenon occur in life day in and day out. Everybody goes through that. Stress is how you react, how you respond. And just like the example you were giving at the very end, accident, somebody cuts you off and you say, maybe, I hope he's safe. Basically, you are actually responding in a more calmful way. You're not responding to a natural way like getting mad and cursing and doing all these things. That's what causes stress. You are actually dispelling that stress. So actually, the training the body and the mind in whatever way you can is the basis for the entire health.
That's exactly right. So well put, very nicely put. But what I'm thinking is that how these people knew, now we can collaborate all this. You know, we talked about the gland, you know, I mean, when we talked about all these things, that these are the hormone levels and all that. See, they didn't know anything about hormones at that time, you know. But yet they knew the effects of it. See, the whole, and of course there are some, this thing of, there's breathing also, but in addition to that breathing, of course, there's so many other things also, good life and yum and you know, what do's and don'ts and all that, you know, what you see. But yeah, definitely there's very, very important there. Whole thing. And breathing is so, yes sir.
I want to share one thing with this group, experience in my life. I was doing yoga for almost 14 years non-stop, from 17, 18 years to all the way to 28, 20, 32, until I got married and then I got lazy. So, but the point I learned in those years, I started on my own reading the books. Back those days, there was no Google, no nothing. But I was reading books and, oh, this is forward bend, kind of thing. But one thing that really changed my way of believing in and practicing, I went to a yoga camp for 15 days in Bangalore. Of course, I went to Bangalore. What I would request is, if you get a master or a teacher who can teach you at least once in your lifetime, go through that practice and learning. The gentleman who was sitting here was saying that when he was doing a meditation, he was not able to sleep for the next 2 hours. When I was doing all by myself yoga, that is what was happening. Body was always agitated, you know, blood is boiling kind of feeling. But when I learned through this camp, it was such a difference, you know, magnificent difference that, oh, is that simple thing that I was making a mistake? Kind of realization that came to my mind, and then onwards, you know.
No, we to tell you about a story, we go to Boone, North Carolina for 2 weeks in a year, several times, you know. And what happened is there was a person who had gone for one of these Tibetan camps, and he had gone there, and it was dark, and you know, it's in a forest area. So he asked that, you know, the person there that, are there any snakes? He said, yes. And then he said, what do you do if I see a snake? He said, you know, just bless them, you know, give them your blessings, you know. So it's like, I mean, there are extremes, you know. I mean, people that go on this thing. And you know, they quit food at about the food that they have after 3 o'clock, there's nothing to eat. Yeah. You know, and then at 4 in the morning, they're woken up with a big noise. I mean, you know, they can't sleep after, you know, 4 o'clock you have to start. So there were extreme things, but he said, you know, that this thing is, after the first few days, you know, what did I get into this, you know? But then gradually it kind of grew up in him, and so it's so many things. I think the time's up. We're good.
I want to add one more thing with that, that you said that the practices you learn on your own and do wrongly and nobody is there to correct you. So there are yoga classes in this temple conducted by Dr. Shroff on Monday and Wednesday from 10:30 to 12:30. Please do come, everybody. And those who want to come, give me their numbers. I'm the one who does the support and coordination. And do come and you learn the right way. Meditation plus yoga, both have been done and it is being managed by them.
And one last thing I want to say is that, this yoga is good. I mean, there's no question. The biggest transformational thing that I did and a lot of my friends have done is definitely there. But there are injuries also, so you need to know how to prevent those injuries. There are certain poses that you should not do. Even simple thing like, you're bending forward and you're doing that downward dog and all that. If you have glaucoma in your eyes, you shouldn't do it. So some people don't know it. If you have high blood pressure, you shouldn't do it. If you're pregnant, you shouldn't do it. There's so many little things that people should know. And like what you said, that you learn from a person who knows, it's very important. Like Mati said, there are certain little things that you need to know. It's not one, laakh dukho ki ek dawa, It is that, you have to come to that. And the whole thing is that what yoga is, when they say yoga chitta vritti nirodha, it is the resolution of the agitation of the mind. That's all it is. That's all it is, the agitation.
I did not realize that you got the point. I did not realize when I was learning by my own, but that's what the teacher told me.
Good, thank you. Yeah, that was all, yeah. So, TM is they used to give a mantra for this thing that is where Maharshi Yogi, popularized that, and he used to give a mantra and charge enemy for the mantra and all that. And he said that he's giving the mantra, when he looks at you and he can figure out which is the best mantra and all that, and you just follow the mantra. In Sahaj, they don't stress that much about they give you mantra, but not to that extent that they think that's what I think. Yeah, because Sahaj, he was there. Sahaj. That is in the Isha Foundation. They do the same.
Hatha Yoga. Sadhguru is Hatha Yoga, Isha Foundation.
Yeah, but besides Hatha Yoga is also, but there might be something. I think that basically what happens
No, meditation is not
More body.
meditation.
Yeah, there are
One is physical, other one is
I mean, there's so much of it, you need to know what is correct. You separate that is a big deal.
More physical.
They see it's HATA, advanced body, but some people say Hatha Yoga.
Thank you. Thank you, Nipam. Good, wonderful talk. And I want to mention that on January 5th, the first Sunday, we have the talk on the basics of menopause, health education for your 40s and beyond. So it is also meant for the males also. Dr.